All right, guys, so that is really the Washington perspective on things, but I do want to get to the larger league perspective and also what's going on going forward with Bradley Beal. How long can this situation hold? So we're going to bring in now our senior NBA insider. We're fortunate to have Adrian Wojnarowski with us today, too. So, Woj, what can you tell us from the Bradley Beal side of things?
Well, Rach, I talked to Mark Bartelstein of Priority Sports. He's Bradley Beal's agent yesterday evening, and he told me that right now Bradley's focus and his focus with the Wizards is just on trying to get this season turned around and trying to get this team on track. And I think Beal, when he signed that extension, adding on a couple years onto his deal, remember, he's under contract next season, 21-22, has a player option for 22-23. He knew that there was going to be a period here that they needed to see growth and that he wanted to see, I think, where the Wizards could go as an organization. John Wall was coming back. Obviously they brought in Rui Hachimura. Thomas Bryant, that was a significant injury, losing him for the season. This isn't the team they imagined going into this year. But the one thing about Beal and I think the relationship he's had with that organization is he's not impetuous typically with what's going on, and he has been extremely loyal there. I think people were surprised when he decided to do that extension, given where the team was. Now, the trade deadline is March 25th, and so that's less than 2 months away right now. And there's been no indication, and you talk to other teams who are all over the league monitoring the Beal situation closely and looking for any inkling to think that he might be coming available. And teams typically will know before anybody else does. Before we even report it, they will know that there's an opening there, and none of them sense that now. And so I think for Beal, listen, things change, but right now, trying to get this team back on track. But there's no question, I think his future, certainly his long-term future, Rach, is very uncertain there. And I think even once we get to the trade deadline, if he starts to think about what is my future here, is that something you want to address at the trade deadline in the middle of a pandemic? Or do you want to address it perhaps in the off season when you can see a broader landscape of what the league looks like, what the future of the Wizards look like? And I think those are all things that Beal and Mark Bartelstein are going to have to weigh together.
I love that behind-the-scenes insight, because I think fans sometimes think, oh, we're stirring stuff up or asking these questions. We start talking about stuff after the teams start talking about stuff, and it is one of the #1 topics of conversation, right, among other front offices is what is going to happen with Bradley Beal, because he could be such a game changer to the balance of the league. That's how big a deal this is as a part on a team that already thinks it might be headed for championship contention. Woj, what are the teams that are having those discussions most intensely and just waiting for something to change in the Beal Wizards dynamic?
Well, there's not a team in the league who wouldn't love to find a way to add Bradley Beal. And even look back to the James Harden talks. I'm not sure every organization felt they were equipped, they were a fit for James Harden. No one denied his talent. But would James Harden want to stay here? Would he fit in with the guys we have? Are there the relationships there that might be needed going in to make it work? Do we want to give up all these assets for a player who, could walk on us? All those questions. I think with Beal, I think there are a lot more teams who know, who believe that you could just fit him in with other great players, and he'd find a way. He'd add to your culture. He'd add into your environment. And certainly on the court, a player at 27 years old who, still has, who's very much in his prime.
Yeah.
I think for teams like Golden State or the Denvers, teams who have assets, who are contenders, but also when they're healthy, but also have, let's say if you're Golden State, you've got that Minnesota draft pick. If you're Denver, you've got a great young player in Michael Porter Jr. You got an all-star in Jamal Murray in the backcourt. Now, I'm not saying they would do it, but you look at those teams and say they'd have enough to get in the conversation, and that's going to be the decision for teams all over the league. Of course, the Lakers and Clippers would love to be able to get involved in that, but do they have the draft picks? Do they have the young players it would take that would top a package from some other teams? Maybe not. And so, but you're going to see it will be a frenzy if and when, Bradley Beal gets on the market, and he will have a say in where he goes because of his contract situation. Unless a team is just willing to do a trade, hope to convince him to stay long term, they would have him under contract next season. But that's pretty risky for somebody who might be having to give up giving up multiple first-round picks, probably your best young player. So I think those are all considerations for teams, but boy, I don't think there will be many who aren't going to make a call and sit and brainstorm and try to figure out, could we get Bradley Beal if he becomes available?
So fascinating. The entire league watching Washington, D.C. right now. Woj, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you back here soon enough.
Thanks, Rach.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.